Welcome everyone and welcome to IsisParenting Sleep Support Webinar and Chat. My name is Nancy Holtzman. I'm a mom and baby nurse educator, board certified lactation consultant, and board certified in pediatrics. I'm here outside of Boston, Massachusetts in IsisParenting's home office, where we have 4 centers in the Metro Boston area. We are opening 5 centers in Dallas, Fort Worth, and 4 centers in Atlanta this week. So stay tuned for the grand opening information. Email me or tweet me or put in the chat room if you have friends or relatives in those towns that you want to get the ISIS info to. Let's see, what can I tell you? Today we are going to talk about sleep and nap patterns for infants from birth to 5 months. And as you probably know, I'm the mom of 2 older teenagers, and my friend and colleague Meg Casano is here today, and she is the mom of 4 beautiful little girls. And we have so much content to get through today that I think we will just get started. And of course, I like to put as many gratuitous baby photos as I possibly can in these webinars, since you send me photos of your beautiful babies. And I wanted to point out that from birth to 5 months is a very long time in terms of development and in terms of sleep. In some ways, it's almost impossible to put this into one category, but there's a specific reason why we do think about infant sleep from birth to 5 months. Here at ISIS, we consider those infants or newborns, and then we talk about babies from 5 months to 15 months, and then from there we talk about toddlers from about 15 months to 36 months. And Meg is going to pick up here and tell us a little bit about why we think of infant sleep from birth to 5 months as one grouping. That is the time frame where their consolidated sleep begins to develop.
Thanks, Nancy, and thanks for joining everyone. So like Nancy said, the first few weeks, sometimes or even first few months, you have this new mom glow, and then as you start, the exhaustion sets in, it starts to wear off. But this can be a really hard time for new parents because, in some ways, your baby is not always ready for a really formalized, structured sleep type intervention to improve sleep, if that's what you are even looking for. It doesn't mean there aren't an awful lot of things you can do to improve your baby's sleep. And so that's why we really like to spend some time teaching you about the things that you can do at this age. What I want to start out showing you in a graph form is how your baby's sleep changes over the first 5 months. This is really cool. And those of you who listen to this weekly know that I like to say this is this is really what you get from ISIS. The things that we teach you are based in science, and this particular graph I'm going to show you in the next slide is of a real baby that Erin, who co-leads the sleep team with me, Erin created this graph. One of her friends or colleagues tracked their baby sleep for a year. And so just to point out what you're going to see, this is a sleep assessment. This is what we use in our sleep consults as well, and it gives you a great quick visual of a ton of information. But just keep in mind over here, this is morning wake-up time area for most babies, not here at 4 a.m. So just keep that in mind. And then this is daytime sleep, where you have naps. What parents do is they shade in the blocks when their baby's asleep, and they leave the blocks blank when their baby's awake. And then over here is, as parents get into their bedtime range. This varies baby to baby, of course. But what this ends up looking like, I love this, is here you go. This is your baby's sleep in the first year. And as you can see, in the first 2 to 2.5 months, it's really disorganized and scattered, and day is night and night is day, and that's actually totally normal. Difficult as that may be, it's normal. It's not until your baby's circadian rhythm or body clock, which is hormonally driven and very complicated, starts to develop here, when you start to see really consistent social smiling, you start to see a lot less of the nighttime pooping, you start seeing signs that your baby's maturing, and that's when you start to get an earlier bedtime with the first inklings of more consolidated sleep. So here you have just a nice quick visual of your baby's sleep and how it changes over time. And I'm going to teach you how to get here and even over here as quickly and easily as you can. Here's another example of sleep during the first 15 months. You can see how it changes. Bedtime is the first thing to get organized and consolidate, followed by morning nap starts to develop, and then your baby ends up on a 3-nap-a-day pattern until roughly most babies between 6 and 9 months will transition to 2 naps a day, and then around 15 months to 1 nap a day. Okay, so we're going to talk week by week, month by month. The first week is sometimes called the honeymoon for you and your new baby. If you have help, hopefully you have or had some help, try to sleep as much as you can, because remember that graph, you don't know when your next long episode of sleep might be coming. So try to sleep when your baby sleeps. Sometimes easier said than done, I know, especially if you have more than one child. The American Association of Pediatricians does recommend that you share a room with your baby, and meaning your baby is in a bassinet or crib or some sort of safe sleeping arrangement that's close to your bed. You want to start napping your baby frequently, which generally is going to mean that your baby won't be able to handle being awake comfortably any more than 45 to 120 minutes at the most. Your baby's sleep at this age is driven only by her sleep pressure. The circadian rhythm hasn't developed yet in the first week, and sleep pressure is just simply how tired your baby is. And so the reason you won't have any type of schedule is because the nap length, your baby's previous nap length, will in part determine how long your baby can subsequently stay awake. So a 20-minute snooze, maybe during a nursing session, won't get you the same awake time that maybe a nice 2-hour nap in the stroller or the crib might get you. So you're going to be making sure you're paying attention to when your baby's getting sleepy and making sure you're helping your baby fall asleep before having these really extended periods of wakefulness. Focus on feeding, focus on breastfeeding if you're choosing or able to do that, focus on healing, and focus on holding, loving, cuddling, snuggling. You can't overdo it with those kinds of things with a newborn. Okay, as you moved through to weeks 2 through 6, honeymoon's over, your baby might start waking up a little bit, you might start feeling like maybe your baby is a little fussier than your friends' babies, and so this is the time to really start practice and learn what soothes your baby. What does your baby like? It's normal, natural, and common for babies to love to fall asleep while feeding, nursing, sucking, and that's great. It may be helpful to keep having some other types of soothing in your repertoire, like holding, rocking, bouncing, swinging, other caregivers, so that your baby is learning to be soothed in more than just one way. You definitely want to be swaddling your baby. Nancy has a link here. You guys, if you know Nancy, she is the swaddling guru, and she's got a link to her swaddle series that she has posted on the ISIS website. So you do definitely, whenever your baby is ready for sleep, whether that be for a nap or in the overnight, you do want to be sure you're swaddling your baby with their arms down. You want to, again, practice nursing. Again, Nancy, if you want to say anything about the swaddle or the nursing lying down too, feel free to jump in, because this is your area of expertise. But you want to, okay. So paying attention to your baby's sleepy signs.
And then
I had a parent tell me a couple of weeks ago that their baby sneezes when he gets tired, which I thought was cute. I hadn't heard that one before. Sometimes your baby might start to get a little fussy, but you might even see leading up to that your baby starts to slow down, quiet down, stare off into space a little bit, bat at their face or rub their eyes. So see if you can figure out your baby's sleepy signs and see if you can help your baby to sleep before he's getting really overtired and cranky. You do want to expect your baby's fussiness to increase and peak as you get close to the 6-week mark. And, by the way, just to say too, and now that we have some additional people joining us, this is a good place to mention that we do count your baby's weeks and months from your baby's due date. So if you have a baby who is premature, you do want to be actually counting weeks from your baby's due date. And so, as you know, as we say, expect your baby's fussiness to increase and peak up to the 6th week. If your baby was born 2 weeks early, I'm sorry to say that it may be 8 weeks or so for your baby to have that increase in fussiness. We do believe that this is in part related to the development of the circadian rhythm and what will become a bedtime that drifts earlier and more consolidated sleep. So even though it's sometimes difficult to deal with, it's actually signs of good things to come. So try to console yourself with that. This is a great time to start practicing with your baby, to put your baby down when they're awake. And we sometimes say put your baby down when they're awake and aware, which means instead of always holding, rocking, bouncing, snuggling, soothing, or nursing your baby to sleep, you might hold, rock, bounce, snuggle, soothe, and nurse your baby to sleepy, and then see if you can lay her in her crib or her bassinet or her pack and play, or another safe place that's designed for baby to sleep. See if you can do that when she's still aware that she's leaving your arms. Again, a great time to start to practice this. It's never too early to start to practice and see if your baby can actually put herself to sleep in her own sleep location. Continue to sleep your baby frequently so that your baby is not becoming overtired. And Nancy, did you want to add anything about the swaddle or the nursing?
Sure, I won't go into too much detail, but I think many people have heard me say before, maybe in the breastfeeding webinars, that these are the hardest weeks, between weeks 3 to 7 or 3 to 8 or so, because young babies essentially do 3 things. They eat, they sleep, and they fuss. I say that with love and with care because I love the newborn stage. But if you feel like all you're doing is holding your baby, walking, bouncing, jiggling your baby, or nursing your baby, or letting your baby nap on you or next to you, you're probably right. That's what babies do during this time frame. And so it's okay to figure out some quick fixes that seem to work as long as they're safe. So wearing your baby in a slinger carrier, even better, wearing your baby in a slinger carrier and sitting on a physio ball and gently getting that groove going. That vestibular motion will lull them into sleep, and chances are they will stay asleep as long as you keep that motion going. Swaddling with the arms down, I think people know I'm a big fan of that. And if you're going to say, well, my baby hates being swaddled, or my baby's Houdini, he can get out of everything, we have articles that talk about that. I'm not going to insist that every single baby needs to be swaddled and will do better swaddled, because of course there's no one rule for all babies. But most babies don't enjoy being restrained and swaddled, but if once they are swaddled, they sleep longer, then you as the adult need to make the executive decision. There's lots of things babies don't like, but we still do. If it's good for them, if they sleep an extended period of time when they're swaddled versus unswaddled, and you sleep too, it's better for everybody. So there's a lot of swaddle products, whether you want to use a swaddle technique like the super swaddle, or you're going to purchase something like a miracle blanket or a Wombi, or different types of specific swaddle products to make it easier for you. All of those things can work. So we'll also talk about swaddle transitions, I think, in the next slide over. Oh, and nursing
Great.
lying
Thanks,
down.
Nancy.
I think that's something to practice during the day when your wits are about you and the lights are on and your shirt is up and you can see what you're doing, because you want to get really good and comfortable at learning how to nurse lying down. You can even learn to nurse on both breasts without rolling over and flipping the baby onto the other side. And that will help you at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning if you need to feed at night. Again, as the AAP recommends, they suggest bringing the baby into your bed for feeding and soothing, and then returning the baby to a separate sleep surface before you go to sleep. No matter where your baby sleeps, we always want a safe sleep environment free of suffocation and entrapment risks. Okay, I've said my piece.
Thanks, Nancy. Okay, so as you move through to your week 7 to 16, this is when you're starting to see the real development of your baby's circadian rhythm or body clock. Again, this is really complicated functions, hormonally driven. It causes responsible for a lot of different bodily functions, but basically this is going to be the reason for your baby to begin to have an earlier, more regular and predictable bedtime, and for your baby to start having more consolidated stretches of sleep at night. The first portion of the night to firm up, and what we expect to see is the first third of the night. So, for many babies now, by the end of the 3rd to 4th month, that's a good 4 to 6 hour stretch. And unless there's a medical reason for your baby to be waking up in those first 4 hours for feedings, that's something that we really like to see babies starting to do. And we often help parents with newborns get to that. I'll talk more about how you can do that. It's important to think about a bedtime routine that might feel nice for your family. We've got this lovely picture of this baby reading a story. I love the hair. Not all newborns are going to be ready for that, and that's okay. Even simple things like turning on your white noise machine, closing your blinds, swaddling your baby, and bouncing on the ball for a few minutes. That could be a bedtime routine. Just some sort of predictable series of events that you're going to begin leading up to the time that you think is going to be your baby's bedtime. Now, sometimes, of course, this can be hard to predict with newborns. So, what I recommend is start to, we're going to talk more about the sleep environment, but start to pay attention to the time that you're sort of turning your house into night mode. You're turning off your lights, you're turning off your TV, you're starting to sort of make a commitment to keeping your baby's body in a nighttime place. You know how in the first several weeks you might be sort of up and down and on the couch and watching a show or walking around or going outside. There comes a time when you're trying to help the circadian rhythm develop that you say, you know what, let's see if we can try to keep our little baby in her sleep environment, whether that's your room or nursery, and you and another caregiver can cycle in and out to provide soothing, rocking, comforting, or feedings, but see if you can sort of keep her more in that sleep location. And then what you'll start to see is those last little mini naps, like the mini snooze from 8 to 8:30, or the snooze from 6:30 to 8, and then the later bedtimes that you see in the first several weeks. Those little mini snoozes in the evening start to actually become the bedtime, and so you'll start to implement your little bedtime routine leading up to those last late day naps, and you'll see them consolidate into those longer stretches, those 4 to 6 hours of sleep. Sleep environment is now becoming extremely important in your baby's exposure to light and dark. Light when you want your baby to be awake, and darkness when you want your baby to be asleep. Now, this time of year, we are getting a lot of calls about early morning wakings, nights that are shortening because of baby's extended exposure to the light. Natural light is a very strong cue to be awake. So you want to make sure you have some really effective room darkening shades or drapes, and you might want to check out these webinars that we have recorded to make sure your baby really has an optimal sleep environment in terms of level of coolness, level of darkness, level of quiet. At this time too, you want to practice at least napping your baby in the crib from time to time if the crib is a place that you will eventually desire your baby to sleep. So your baby's starting to form strong sleep associations and feeling like what is the right way and the right place to sleep. So, if you have a crib set up, it's a good idea to see if you can practice at least one nap in the day, if you can. Even if you've been doing things like if your baby's been sleeping in a swing or a car seat or a stroller, these are places that, you have to be careful of your baby's positioning. You have to be observing your baby if they're sleeping in a location like this during the day. But you could do things like, for example, put your baby's car seat in their room so that they're at least getting used to sleeping in a location that you will ultimately desire. Continue to nap and sleep your baby frequently. Continue to expect irregularity of naps. That's because of the sleep pressure. Sleep pressure is still driving your baby's naps, and so your baby just needs to sleep when she's tired. By the end of this time period, as you get closer to the 4-month mark, you may start to see the beginnings of your first morning nap develop in your baby. And so if you can start to start your day at a predictable time within about the same 30-minute window, turn on lights, play, have a feeding at a regular time in the morning, you'll start to see your baby ready to go down for their first nap at a regular time in the morning as well. That's more like by the 4-month mark or so. And usually your baby would be ready for that nap about 90 minutes after wake up. Oh, and then Nancy's got a link here for a problem solving 6 weeks to 14 months webinar. These are where we talk about some gentle strategies to help teach your baby to extend sleep, the beginnings of initiating sleep independently and the beginnings of sleep extension independently. Another quick touch on your baby's room environment. It really has to be dark from target bedtime all the way through to target wake time. We do recommend using continuous white noise machine, particularly because newborn babies spend most of their time in REM sleep, which is really important type of sleep where they're processing a lot of information, but it's also a time of sleep when they're really likely to be awakened by noise. So do use a white noise machine to help protect from some of those environmental wake-ups that could shorten a nap or shorten your night. If your room is dry and your baby's seems like having some dryness or trouble with congestion, which is very common in newborns, do try using a cool mist humidifier. And again, check out our webinar link for sleep environments. Okay, so now frequently asked questions. If you say to yourself, okay, well, I'm keeping my baby as rested as I can. My baby has a great sleep environment. I feel like I'm doing everything right. I've got a great swaddle. My baby just won't sleep. So, you know, this is common. Many parents report that they have trouble getting their baby to sleep anywhere but on a parent or when nursing. And so the first thing I want to say is always just please don't be afraid to soothe. I mean, at this age, your baby has to sleep. So I don't want to see you try anything at the expense of sleep. You know, I know parents who will just try the crib all day long because they're very stressed about having their baby sleep in the crib, but then they end up being everyone's miserable, tired, frazzled mess by the end of the day. So, you know, yes, we encourage practicing the crib, practicing independent sleep, but please, you know, what I'm going to go through next, I don't want you to try it at the expense of sleep. Don't be afraid to soothe your baby. If you're finding that your baby is only wanting to sleep when nursing, you might see if you can try some trading down, really gentle, earliest forms of trading down sleep associations, which we have a webinar recorded about that. You know, so maybe instead of nursing your baby every time they seem like they're getting sleepy, maybe you can try to rock, hold, bounce, get on the physio ball, wear your baby, take a walk. See if you can figure out a way besides the actual sucking that you can soothe your baby and get them to sleep. Some babies too, you know, as a transition, you know, instead of trying to go right from nursing or holding all the time to, you know, flat on their back in their crib, there might be an interim step you can play around with. For example, maybe you have a swing that you could put your baby in. And so at least your baby is getting used to sleeping in more of an inanimate object rather than on someone's lap or chest all the time. Same thing with a baby seat or a car seat. Again, you would use these sleep locations safely as advised. You're making sure your baby's head positioning is in line, their neck's not crunched over. This is observed sleep during the day. But it can be a helpful transition in getting your baby off a warm body and into a sleep location that they might be more tolerant of rather than just flat in a crib. Some people are surprised to hear us say this, you know, but we understand that, you know, if I were to tell you, you only put your baby down in the crib flat on our back, that you might not sleep. And really the bottom line is you all have to sleep at this age. Later, when your baby's older, it may be appropriate. You may need to think about doing a little more formal or structured sleep intervention, and that could be in the form of something very gentle and soothy, whatever you choose. But at this point, your baby's a little too young for that. Parents often ask about dream feedings. Should I wake my baby and feed my baby at? Oh, sorry, Nancy wants to say something. Go ahead, Nancy.
I was just commenting on some info in the chat room, and I just wanted to remind people that sometimes parents are so anti-bed sharing, or people call it co-sleeping, but that actually just means having the baby in proximity. So bed sharing is having the baby in your bed. And sometimes people are so anxious about that at 3 o'clock in the morning, they'll take the baby and sleep with the baby on the reclining chair or the living room couch. And that, in fact, is much more dangerous in terms of suffocation and entrapment risk. So I would certainly rather a parent sleep with the baby on a firm, flat surface with no pillows or quilts around the baby and no space for no gaps or crevices the baby could roll into or fall off of, rather than sleep on a parent's chest in the middle of the night on the living room couch, because that actually is a dangerous situation in terms of the baby becoming wedged between couch cushions and the parent's body. And that's different than, in the afternoon when you're watching TV
Thanks,
and the
Nancy.
baby is napping on your chest and you're drowsy. 3 o'clock in the morning, your body is trying very
okay,
hard to put you
I'll
into deep sleep, and you're
back to the
going
dream
to be a little bit less
feedings
aware of the baby's movement.
For a second, a lot of parents are asking if they should wake their baby and be giving their baby a feeding at 10 o'clock or so to help their baby sleep through the night at this point. Our answer is, hey, if it's working for you and you wake your baby and feed quickly at 10 and then they sleep till 5 in the morning, okay, no problem. But typically that is not a long-term solution. We don't usually recommend starting a dream feeding if you haven't been doing it already. It doesn't usually help the way most parents think it will. I mean, again, anecdotally, if it's working for you, fine. But what ends up happening is it just keeps disrupting that first third of the night, which should become the longest stretch of the night. Those 4 hours will turn into 6 and 8 and 10. So better not to sort of mess with that first stretch of the night unless there's a medical reason that you have to. And dream feedings also create habitual hunger so that your baby will continue to want to wake up and eat at that time, even past the point of needing the feeding. So dream feedings we don't usually recommend starting them. And if you have, it's probably not going to be a long-term solution. If you're having trouble with single sleep cycle naps, like pop-ups after the 30 or 40-minute mark, the best thing you can try to do at this age is try to soothe through the sleep cycles. Baby sleep cycles are usually pretty exact, and if you notice your little one is waking up after, say, 37 minutes, then you might try to go in or go over to the side of the bassinet or crib at 36 minutes and see if you can do gentle jiggle, gentle soothe, gentle hand on the tummy, stroke of the cheek. See if you can soothe your baby through into the next sleep cycle. You could certainly try this at night as well. And then always, of course, having a great sleep environment and making sure your baby is staying rested is always helpful. So a touch on swaddle, swings, and bouncy seats. We like to say, as long as it works and as long as it's safe, then don't be afraid to soothe your baby, but do keep an eye on the future and what type of sleep associations, that's the way your baby thinks is the right way to fall asleep, what type of associations you're developing, what type of associations are going to be sustainable long-term. So it's a great practice to always try to get your baby into an independent sleep location when they're still awake and aware. But if you need to use something like a seat or a swing or a stroller or a car in an effort to keep your baby rested, which we know ultimately is extremely important, as long as it's safe it's okay. Later, you can use your baby sleep associations, like you can use the stroller or the car seat. You can use the bouncing on the ball to establish your baby's sleep location. You could move the bouncy ball into your baby's room and start bouncing your baby to sleep at predictable times each day. So you could use your association to establish your timing and location. So it's not the end of the world. You will still be able to solve that sleep association if you need to down the road. More links for you to swaddle transitions, and of course what we all love, the Merlin Magic sleep suit, this last little guy in the blue. Sleep accessories. These are some really great pictures. Here's another great helpful link for you about when to introduce a lovey. You certainly can start introducing a lovey to your baby right from the get-go, so he's getting used to the feel, the smell. Generally, you'll wait to actually put anything into your baby's crib or bassinet until your baby's older and can reliably move around and reposition the lovey as they need to. Pacifiers, the American Association of Pediatricians does recommend offering a pacifier to your baby as they're falling asleep, and they do recommend using that in the first 6 months. Some babies just won't take the pacifier. That's okay, but you should know that once you've established nursing, if you're able to do that, then offering the pacifier as an alternative to sucking or soothing to sleep is okay as well. Okay, so I know, like Nancy said, this is a huge topic. I feel like I could talk about any one of these things for the whole half an hour. I'd say the biggest takeaways for you is to remember, count from your baby's due date. Expect the first 6 weeks for a lot of that fussiness to increase and peak. And then as you start to see social smiling, you'll start to see the bedtime drifting earlier, consolidation of night sleep. So use a bedtime routine to start to establish that. Use your baby's sleep environment, like keeping it cool and dark and quiet, to help establish your baby's overnight sleep. Keep your baby well rested during the day. And then the last thing I want to say too is try to do the least amount of intervention that you can overnight. The least amount of diapering, the least amount of of playing, talking. I'm not saying give your baby the silent treatment, of course, but just quiet shushing, calm, gentle behavior, lights off or as low as you possibly can, minimal diapering. You're just very much in nighttime mode, and that will help cue your baby that it's time for sleep as well. And then lots of links to Nancy, I'm not sure I don't think we had the link for gently reducing night feedings when the time comes as your baby's moving closer to the 4-month mark. If you're really having lots of additional night feedings, like 3 to 4 feedings a night, and you and your pediatrician are feeling like that's too many for your baby, then you might want to take a look at our Gently Reducing Night Feedings webinar as well. And as always, if you would like some personalized individual help about your particular baby and your particular situation, whether it be, twins, or what do I do about my work schedule, or daycare, or just general questions, anything as it relates, believe me, we have handled it all as it relates to newborns, babies, toddlers, and sleep. We are happy to help.
Great, thank you, Meg. I see we had so much to cover that we are pretty much
next week question
time.
Only is great next week.
So we're not going to be able to get to the questions today. Meg, I think next week let's do questions only, and then we'll pick up the planned topic that we had scheduled. I think we were going to do silent return to bed with toddlers. Does that sound right to you? Okay, I think we've done a few weeks of heavy content, and we have a lot of people who have a lot of questions that we haven't been able to get to. But of course, just give us a call, and you can speak to one of our sleep team on the phone for 50 minutes and get your personalized support. Tuesday, next week, we'll do just questions only. This Thursday at 12 noon is the breastfeeding webinar, and that also
Thanks,
is
Nancy.
just
Bye,
Q&A
everyone.
this week. So tune in at 12 to get your breastfeeding and or pumping and or weaning, solid foods, cups, you name it, all of those questions answered. I wish everybody a happy, healthy, nurturing, sleep-filled week, and we will see you back next Tuesday. Thank you so much, Meg.